Hello, everybody out there in guitar interest world. This is Wes and Andrew with the Different Strings podcast, bringing you another episode. Andrew, say hello to everybody in the world and tell them about our social outreach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. You can reach us on, all right, now I've been told I need to slow down. So you can reach us on twitter.com/Different Strings Podcast. You can reach us on YouTube at Different Strings Podcast. You can reach us on Facebook. Just search for Different Strings Podcast. Instagram, different.strings.pod, and email differentstringspodcast@gmail.com.
It sounded like you were at the end of one of those TV commercials or radio commercials about a new prescription drug where they tell you all the side effects, may cause anal leakage, death, and dismemberment, spontaneous combustion. But they got to say it all really fast.
So now if you search anal leakage in Apple Podcasts, our podcast may come up. I'm just saying, anal leakage, Different Strings Podcast. Fantastic.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We are coming in with episode 4, and we're going to talk about gear, like hard talk about gear. This episode's titled Gear Surprises, subtitle Love Against the Odds and Hate Against the Hype. And I got to say, Andrew, that's inspired. That subtitle made me want to click on the thing over and over like that. We talk a lot about not clickbaiting our titles. And I think you rode the line right there between like negative clickbait and positive, like, ooh, I want to click on that. I want to hear love against the odds and hate against the hype. Inspired, my friend. Inspired.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, this is a topic that I'm excited to talk about this because I think that everyone who's listening to this can relate. Everyone. I don't think there will be a single person out there that will not be able to relate to at least some of this, because look, buying gear, sometimes it's an impulse buy, sometimes it's an emotional buy, sometimes it's, no matter what happens, you never know how it's going to work out, and then sometimes things exceed your expectations.
Yeah.
So I like this discussion. I think this is cool. I think a lot of people can relate to this, and I'm looking forward to what comes out of this.
Well, to help get things going, I came up with a couple questions I thought would really suit us as an appetizer for this episode. And the first one is a little bit negative. The second one's a little bit positive. So we're gonna hit both sides of that fence. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about the first thing that you can remember that you bought, the first piece of gear that you instantly regretted. Took it out of the box, hated it almost immediately.
That would be Morley wah pedal.
Okay.
So I've tried several over the years, and I got one even right now sitting in the closet collecting dust. So I know there's a lot of guitar players that use Morley wah pedals that I like. I like Steve Vai, to name one. And although I'm not a fan of the guitar player, I think the tone is good. Mark Tremonti, I liked his wah tone. When I was playing metal, I was playing in a band that played the metals. I liked his wah tone. I wanted that wah tone.
Gotcha.
No matter what Morley wah pedal I tried, could not get along with it.
Yeah.
I've even tried the Bad Horsey more than once. Like, well, maybe it was me. Maybe it was my gear. Maybe it was, nope. There's something about the Morley tone. I know this about myself. I know I like the Dunlop. I know I like the Vox. They all have their own thing.
Yeah.
Yet for some reason, I keep trying the Morley. I have one right now. I just bought another one.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. I have a problem. I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. I don't have a problem.
No. The thing I tried Morley once. And I don't know if all of the Morley wahs are like this, but I didn't like the auto on off. I didn't like when you step on it, it turns on. That I was so used to the Dunlop rock it forward, smash the button, and you're instantly, full treble. That's what, but I also, and it's a technique thing, right? I like to rest my foot on it before I actually need it, because I gotta get psyched up, to get into the wah. I don't use it with the frequency that Kirk Hammett does.
I was gonna
So
say, wait, so Kirk
I'm,
Hammett perpetually lives in that mode where it's
yeah,
just it's always on. It's just all. Kirk, do you have any pedals on your pedal board that are always on? The wah pedal,
the
it's
wah
always
pedal
on.
is always on. Yeah, and so that alone, I didn't know about that when I bought it, and I used it for a couple of months just because I'd paid for it, but then I don't even think I tried to sell it. I think I just gave it away because it just I could not get used to that. And there's nothing wrong with the sound. It sounded fantastic.
No.
But that step to that drove me crazy.
Yeah. And the funny thing is I thought that wah pedal, that auto on off feature, like, was a good thing. Like, because it sounds like a convenience. But I'm like you've been playing a Dunlop or a Vox your whole life. I'm like you, and it's a weird thing. But that wasn't even the reason I don't like. It's just the sound of it, and they always, God bless Morley, they always sound like Morley's. Why do I
Yeah.
keep trying it? I'm convinced it's like it's in your head. It must be you, Andrew. It's a perfectly good wah pedal. Steve Vai wouldn't be using it if it wasn't good. I'm not Steve Vai. Why do I keep? I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine.
Everything's fine.
Okay. Everything's all right. So what about you? What was the instant regret for you?
Oh, I gotta go back the Wayback Machine to right when I first started playing guitar. So probably 1985, maybe early 86. I told you when we talked about the small town music stores, I told you about my experience with a place called Dale City Music.
Yep.
And so, it was one of the things I loved to do was go down and look at the pedals in the cabinet. And Boss was the end all be all, right? So
Yeah.
this was Boss's heyday, the DS1, the CE3, I think the DD3, the digital delay, their first one of their
Killing
early
it.
digital delays was out.
They
And I
killed
really
it.
wanted the Bosses, but they were expensive,
Yes, because
especially for
they.
somebody who made their money mowing lawns and washing cars. It was um so I got the other brand that they carried. It was a brand called Arion,
Yep, I had
and
one.
it sounded pretty good compared to the Boss. Like I tested them side by side, and it didn't sound exactly the same. It had one more knob, so extra bonus. Actually, I can't remember now if the CE3 has 3 or 4 knobs, but it had 4 knobs. And I got it home, and I had broken it in like 2 days. The battery cover was right on top. It was this little colored plastic cover. The whole thing was plastic. It was cheap. It was just so cheap. And so now I've got my brand new Boss pedal, or my brand new chorus pedal that's like a day and a half old, and I'm holding it together with duct tape.
Wow.
Because every time I kicked it to turn it on, the battery would disconnect. I didn't even know at that time, I didn't know, bend the little tabs to get a more solid connection on the battery kind of thing. And so it's just, it was just such a disappointment, but it did
Man.
sound pretty good.
Just not roadworthy.
Yeah, not at all roadworthy. And I think I ended up killing it. I think it eventually just died and in about a month. And so I had to save up all over again. And that time I just saved up till I could get the Boss. And
First lesson in economics, right?
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
You wound up.
buy once, cry once.
Yeah, man.
So the flip side of that is I'm interested to find out something that you missed out on that you really wanted to get, that you thought would work really good for you, but for some reason you never got it. It was first available and everybody was getting them, and you just missed out for whatever reason. Waning interest, lack of funds, most likely because we were kids.
Yep.
What fits in that hole for you?
For me, this is an easy one. Carvin guitars.
Carvin. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people know, because of recent history, a lot of people only remember Carvin as what became, is it Kiesel or Keisel?
Which is first, the E or the I? How's it spelled?
Oh, I'll probably be wrong. You know what? I'll consult the internet, but I think it's K. I think it's KIE.
Yeah, if it's KIE and they're
It
German,
is.
it's Kiesel.
Okay, Kiesel. It's Kie. All right. The
Yeah,
internet.
when
The
you
internet doesn't lie.
in German, when you have I and E next to each other, you say the second one.
Okay. So a lot of people know that Carvin split, right? They had a pro audio division and then they
Yeah,
split the guitar division. So a lot of people only know Kiesel from their recent experience with Jeff Kiesel, and that's not what Kiesel is to me. Okay, what Kiesel is to me is every month I'd get a small paper catalog in the mail, and it you were able to, back then in the late 80s and early 90s, I'm talking, custom order a guitar
yeah,
through this catalog. um Tons of options, and they looked beautiful. They came with all the latest features, things you couldn't get on other guitars at the time. Beautiful flame maple tops and
oh yeah,
set necks, or I'm sorry, neck through,
yeah, neck
um,
through, exactly.
laminated necks and laminated bodies, and just gorgeous instruments, and reasonably priced. If you remember, you could get a Carvin, even a custom order one, very reasonably priced when compared to other guitars on the market.
Yeah,
Um, and they came with their own pickups. They didn't deal with like DiMarzios or Seymour Duncans. You would get Carvin pickups, which weren't terrible, but for some reason I never pulled the trigger.
never did that.
No, because again, part of it was I had never played one, so I didn't know would I like it, would I hate it.
Yeah,
And they weren't carried in stores. You could only get Carvins direct
direct.
from Carvin.
Yeah,
So remember, we talked about this before about buying direct. Back then, there was no internet. You could only get Carvins either direct from Carvin, custom ordered, or on the used market.
right.
And that the used market back then, again, pre-internet, was finding people in your neighborhood, or walking into a Sam Ash and seeing one that was you, but
Yeah,
which you
just hanging
never
there.
did. So I just never pulled the trigger. And then years later, now after internet, they start hitting the used market. A friend of ours, I won't say his name because of private information, but friend of ours owned a Carvin, played it. It was nice, but he told me they have terrible resale value. Like,
Oh yeah,
there was never any buzz about Carvins. It wasn't like you saw a lot of famous people playing them. It was this weird little thing. They were just out there, and I don't know, but I always wanted one. They were so gorgeous, and I heard they sounded good. I can't attest to that because I've never seen or played one.
yeah,
So I feel like I missed, and now you can't get them now, because really, to me, Kiesel is not Carvin.
right.
It's,
Yeah, I get you.
now they're lower, they're, fan frets and multi-scale, and they're a completely different animal. Same
Well,
theory, but it's just not the same thing.
yeah, and I hate to break it to you, but they're not trying to sell a guitar to you anymore.
Mm.
They're
What's
trying to
it?
sell they're trying to sell a guitar to the equivalent of you in 1988. Right? They're trying to sell a guitar to your kid who's
Mm.
interested in more avant-garde stuff than you are.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
knew one dude in high school that had a Carvin, and it was beautiful. It sounded fantastic. I hadn't been playing very long, so I never had the guts to ask him to let me play it. So I have no idea, but I do know that he still has that guitar, and we're, a couple decades out of high school at this point, at
Mhm.
least. So yeah, I loved getting the catalog, and part of me was skeptical. What does a PA company know about making guitars? But they sure
Right.
looked good, man. And I
Yeah.
and I have never heard anybody who owned one say they had a problem with it. It was a terrible guitar, this, that, and the other. So in my mind, Carvin still, and kind of Kiesel by extension, has a pretty good reputation.
Mhm.
So I still haven't played a Kiesel, but I'll tell you something, Mike. Just between you, me, and the internet, man, I look at their website and dream a little bit sometimes.
Do you ever-
Yeah,
do you
I go look. I use the configurator. I'm not gonna lie about it.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's still not as cool as looking through a paper catalog, though, man. There was something about that, just
Yeah,
dreaming. Oh, it was so cool.
That's good stuff. For me, it was I want to say a few years ago, but it
Mhm.
may be as much as 10 or even 15 years. Um, the company Moog, right? Moog, which most people say Moog because that's what it looks like. So we're just going to switch to that because I don't know the people in the family. They can be mad at me. Um, they're known for keyboards, analog synthesizers, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
I had a Taurus 2 bass pedal set up back in the day
Neat.
that I just, oh man, I love that thing. I never should have sold it. Sounded massive. Run it through a PA with plug it into a direct box and run it into the PA and step on a low note, man, and it would just shake the mains. It was amazing. But they did this run of large format effect pedals.
I remember.
Yeah, so they had a delay and a phaser and a this and a that. And I really wanted the delay and the phaser. That's why, I thought of it. But I was like, I was in a non-pedal phase at that time. Where am I gonna put this? I'm just gonna leave it on the floor. I didn't, it was really before YouTube was huge. Certainly before I was using YouTube to go check out product demos. And I just didn't get one. And I just always kind of regretted that. And I went and looked at them when we started talking about this episode. I went and looked at them. The analog delay for used now. Are you ready for this? Starts at $1,200.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I'll never have one. It would have been nice.
No, that's never going to happen
Yeah,
at
it was
that
never going to
price.
happen. And I just, a part of me also wanted to be able to just discuss my Mooger Foogers in polite company because that was the brand name they used on that Mooger Fooger, and I just love
Yeah.
that.
I
So
remember those. They looked cool. They looked like their synthesizers, but shrunken down.
yeah,
And they were big pedals too.
and no, yeah, they were big pedals, as big as your head.
Really,
Uh,
well, that's saying something, but also hard to, it's really weird to call them pedals. They were mini effect units. They
yeah,
were big. They were really big.
they were. I don't know. I don't know if you put one of those on your pedal board, and like your pedal board, when you pick it up in the case, would like head tilt, to one end. You have to like balance it in the middle.
The pedal
Um,
board equivalent of an SG neck.
there you go. So I think that we're getting going on gear. We talked about stuff that we were disappointed with. We talked about stuff that we really were excited about but didn't get.
And you know
I think
what? YouTube, put it in, throw it in the Is that what the kids say? Throw it in the comments. Gear that you instantly regretted buying, or gear that
stuff you wish you got.
yeah, like what did you miss out on? Throw it in the comments.
Throw it in the
Kids,
comments.
we
And
want
now
to
that you're
know.
now that you're a little bit older and you got a steady job, go to Reverb, go to whatever Sweetwater's Marketplace is, go to Facebook Marketplace, eBay, look for that thing that you always wished you got and see if you can find one cheap enough. Maybe it's a little scratched up or dented. Maybe it doesn't cost $1,200 for an effect pedal,
Yeah.
a big effect pedal, but still, maybe you can rectify that missing out thing and enjoy a little bit of fun, retroactively correcting a decision.
Exactly. Make your dreams come true. We only
Yeah,
live once.
make your dreams come true. Oh, that's going to be the kick line on this. Make your different strings, make your dreams come true. In a
Don't tell your
world
what don't
where
tell your
dreams come
wives
true.
don't tell your wives or husbands we said that. Just go out and spend the money.
That's right.
You can justify
You
it.
can say, hey, Wes and Andrew said it was cool, and but don't tell them how to find us online.
No, please don't do that.
I don't need that.
Mm-mm.
So what we're going to talk about for the bulk of the episode, until we get to the incredibly surprising dessert that we've prepared for you, is another two-sided thing. Gear that you never thought you'd use, but it turns out you love the things, or gear that you were programmed from an early time as a guitar player or bass player or musician to love, but in fact, you have never been able to like that thing, whatever it is. And you almost feel guilty about it at this point because so many other people love this thing and you can't stand it. And when we were putting our notes together, this is going to really make everybody laugh when it comes up. Andrew and I actually nailed exact same one thing on our lists of gear that we were basically told to love, or else we were going to be terrible human beings, let alone guitar players. But we're going to,
banished to bass player hell.
that's right. But we're going to start with the side of it that stuff we always thought we were going to hate because we were just super prepared to hate it with a red hot burning passion. And it turns out we like those things, maybe even a lot, maybe even, dare I say, love them.
Yeah.
So
well, here's what I'm going to do.
Here's what you're going to do.
So I put a bunch of things on this list, but I'm going to shorten the list a little bit, just because I feel like I could probably narrow it down to a couple of things. And then why don't we alternate?
This is not a short form podcast, Andrew.
All right.
We don't have to go short.
All right. I'm going to go out of order though.
Okay. Go out. You do your list in order.
I'm going to start with the number one thing that I thought I would hate with the red hot passion of a million suns.
Not 100 suns, but a million suns.
Lower output pickups, vintage spec pickups.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a hot take. Like, of course, their hot vintage pickups are amazing. Yes, I get it. I'm late to the party.
But that's what old people play.
Yes, and for decades I wasn't one.
to me, low output means jazz.
Right. And it's not. I thought the same thing. So,
and I got nothing against jazz. Just want to throw that out there. I like a little bit of jazz.
Yeah, but so there was a time, 80s, 90s, when I thought the higher the output of the pickup, the better I would like it.
Yeah.
Ceramic magnets, bring it on.
Giant pole pieces.
Yeah. Give me more pole pieces. It was
active preamps.
Sure, absolutely. And I don't know, call it maturity, call it age, call it knowing better. But I've come to realize that the Alnico 5 and, dare I say, Alnico 2 magnets are so much, they allow you to be so much more expressive. Like you can always add more gain.
Yeah.
But it's hard if your pickup is pushing the front of an amp so hard that it's screaming and you're like, oh, you know what? I think I want a clean tone. Your pickup's like, nope, sorry, not why I'm here. Okay. I'm here to pour sugar in your gas tank. That's it. There's no clean. What clean tones? What? There's no clean tones here. So for me, the pickup, the lower output pickups allow you to be way more expressive.
Yeah.
And you can always add more gain, but you now have this amazing clean tone you can deal with, and you can use the volume control on your guitar to back down and, clean them up a little bit. And they just make notes pop more. And like, I just, I don't know. I always thought I'd hate them. And then I tried them and I thought I should have been playing these for a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah. I had that exact same experience. I've hated something, a specific thing, since the 80s, maybe the early 90s. It depends. And I finally recently tried it, and guess what? I love it. And that thing is Rickenbacker guitars.
Get out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know me, man. Well, I'll give you a little bit of background for people that don't know me, because Andrew knows me. I grew up in Europe. My father was in the service, and so we lived in Europe. And so my formative early music years, I listened to what my parents listened to, and I listened to what Europeans were listening to, because that's what was on the radio. So my dad was into the Beatles, but only the early stuff. He didn't like them, like Revolver On. He was not into their more creator. I won't say
experimental era.
They're more, yeah. He was not interested in their more experimental stuff. he liked the earlier stuff, and he liked folk music. So he listened to groups
Hmm.
like Peter, Paul, and Mary, and the Kingston Trio, and groups like that. And so that's kind of what I grew up with coming from him. Was my mother was Neil Diamond, Barbara Streisand, and Barry Manilow. Dude, I can remember listening to LPs.
Are we related?
Yeah, yeah, that was my mom's jam, man.
Wow.
So that's what I grew up with. And then when I was old enough to start paying attention to music, it was European, what was popular in Europe. So it was a lot of what we eventually started calling new wave. It was, the Police, and a lot of Eurosynth music, that kind of stuff. So when we came back right before we moved back to the States, I started to really get into Queen. I liked Van Halen. That's about when the 1984 album came out. And for me, as a non-guitar player, having a rock album with keyboards on it was like a crossover thing. That was actually appealing to me,
Okay.
right? So I'm diverging here. So I got back to the States right as hair metal in MTV is starting to come out. So I'm into Rat and Twisted Sister and Striper and Dokken and all these bands that are doing, well, maybe not Dokken so much, but they're doing harmonies. They're doing guitar leads with harmonies, which is what I listened to with Queen. And then when I got into Iron Maiden, so I'm super into guitar solos. And man, I'll just listen to anything. I bought any album with awesome guitar solos. I didn't even care who made it.
Right.
So after high school, as high school is wrapping up, we start to get into what they called alternative music, pre-grunge, right? So it's not hard music, but we're talking about bands like REM and XTC and all those bands. And you know what? As I'm still not a big REM fan. I like some of their songs, of course, because they wrote some really good songs.
Sure.
But I don't have a single REM album. I never went to a single REM concert. But my perception of them is no guitar solos. So why would I bother listening to them?
Right.
I listened to folk music my entire life growing up, and I didn't really care for it. And to me, REM was just folk music with electric guitars. Right? Because there's no guitar solos in it. They didn't even throw in like a complimentary bluegrass solo.
No,
So,
right.
and what were all of those guys playing? They were playing Rickenbackers for the Jangle, which was perfect for what they were doing.
Right.
100%. If you put a Les Paul in Pete Buck's hands, REM doesn't happen.
Right.
So I just hated Rickenbackers. I hated everything about them. I hated the way they sounded. I hated the way they looked. I hated everything about them. And then I found out a few years ago that they made one with a maple fingerboard. I'm not a huge rosewood fingerboard fan, unless the guitar happens to have a rosewood neck. That's a different story. And I was intrigued. Plus, the one that I was interested in, the one that I looked at, came with humbuckers on it. They looked like regular Rickenbacker pickups, but they were humbuckers.
Okay.
And so I was like, you know what? If I ever find one of those used, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to try it.
Wow.
And a buddy of mine, who is a guitar repair person, a luthier, as you will, one of his clients unfortunately passed away, but it was a dude that had a massive guitar collection, and he bought a chunk. He helped the family sell everything that they wanted to sell, and part of the deal was he got a bonus rate on the guitars that he wanted to buy. And so obviously he was really kind of excited about this. He always called me and said, "Hey, are you interested in any of these things?" Because we're that way about each other. And he's going through the list, and he says, "I've got this Rickenbacker 380." I was like, "Isn't that the one with the maple fingerboard?" He says, "Yeah, maple neck, maple fingerboard, walnut body, semi-hollow. It's doesn't have any finish on the neck." I was like, "All right, that's the one I want." I had no idea if I was going to like it. That's the one I want. And it had piezo. So I hate piezo. I don't on electric guitars, drives me crazy. I don't like it. But I bought that guitar, and guess what?
You hated it.
No, I loved it.
Oh my
Absolutely loved it.
God.
I absolutely
Spoiler
loved it.
alert.
It's
So,
a fantastic guitar. It's got a big, thick, but a comfortable U-shaped neck.
okay.
The humbuckers sound fantastic. It's got a hardtail bridge because of the piezo, so it doesn't have the trapeze bridge. And then that opened the door. Like, I joined a couple of social media channels that are about Rickenbacker guitars because I wanted to learn more about them. And they're just as weird as we are about whatever we're weird about. So shout out to my Ricks. And in one of these groups, a guy that was basically local popped up selling a 12 string for a great price. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be in, I'm in. And I had heard my whole life, I'd heard Rickenbacker 12 strings are so hard to play because the necks are so narrow.
Okay.
They've got
Right.
this narrow little, one, and I think it's 41.5 millimeters. It's impossible. You
Tight string
can't,
spacing, right?
yeah, you
Tight string
can't put
spacing.
12 strings in there. That's a 6-string only thing. If you're gonna get a Rick 12, you got to get the 1993 plus. You got to get the Tom Petty model, the 660 12, which is a solid body. I'm not interested in a solid body Rickenbacker. Thank you very much. But that's not what this guy was selling. He wasn't selling a 1993 plus. That's the Pete Townsend, unofficial Pete Townsend model. He was selling a 330 12, which is a run-of-the-mill Rickenbacker 12 string. And I met him at a gas station. It was the sketchiest deal ever. We did it cash for guitar out of the trunk of his car. I swear I'm telling the truth. And I got that thing home, and it took me about 2 hours to get used to the neck, which had the same basic shape as my other Rick, but there were 12 strings in there. And I'll tell you how they do it, Andrew. This is the secret. On every 12 string in the world, except a Rick, you get to the octave string first, and then the main string, the regular string.
Right.
Right. So as you strum, the first thing you're going to hit is the octave E string and then the low E.
Right. That's what I know.
Rickenbacker swaps them around.
Really?
Yeah, you hit the low E string first, and then you hit the octave string, and it's like that the whole way across. And it makes it so easy to play because you're almost pressing down the octave string without any additional effort because it's already tucked in under your finger pad.
Right. I was going to say the left hand would probably not like barely tell the difference at that point.
I don't even notice. So the only thing I had to get used to was the slightly closer together string spacing at the bridge, when you're down. So picking for me takes a little bit of concentration, takes a little bit of effort, but and it just sounds so good. I put some aftermarket pickups in it because I wanted it to match the output of the Rick 380 that I was playing, so I could take them both to a gig and switch back and forth. And dude, if I really wish I had tried a Rick when I was 18 or 24 years old. I would have loved them. They're fantastic guitars, and I'm kicking myself for not playing them for 25 years because of Pete Buck.
Damn you, Pete Buck.
Damn you, Pete Buck. Me and Pete are buddies. We're not buddies.
What else have you ruined, Pete Buck?
What else is he? And I'm not even 100% sure that's actually his name. I think that's what it is.
That's
all right,
crazy.
So, oh yeah, dude, man. I talk smack about Ricks, and I'd never played one.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah, I absolutely parroted the myth that Rickenbacker 12 strings are impossible to play because of the string spacing. I parroted that myth to other people.
Having no firsthand experience.
Bad Wes. And I picked one up and I love it.
Wow. Well, you've heard it here, folks. This is like confessional at church.
Yeah, it is.
You're absolved. You're absolved. You're absolved. It's okay. You're fine. Everything's fine. You're fine. You don't have a problem with Rickenbackers.
Okay, good. Now it's your turn again.
Wow. I don't know if I can top that, but
it was such a long story. I'm sorry.
No, but the passion, I mean, I don't think I love my wife as much as you're into Ricks. So Oh, she listens. I
Oh,
love you,
she has.
sweetheart.
Okay.
So, all right. I might have hinted at this in a previous episode, but I'm going to do it again. I hated the concept, the very idea, and never tried them because of it. And then I tried them and thought, where have these been all my life?
Yeah.
Fuzz pedals.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that, I think, in the first episode.
Fuzz pedals. I can't get enough of them now. And I don't even know why. I don't even know why. Everything's fine. I'm fine. I don't have a problem with fuzz pedals. Okay, everything's right. No,
Everything's fine.
but fuzz pedals. First of all, everyone I listen to is using them.
Yeah. You just didn't know that's what it was.
No, shame on me. David Gilmour, one of my
Fuzz
favorite
pedal.
guitar players. Eric Johnson, one of
Fuzz
my
pedal.
favorite guitar players. Jimmy Page, one of my favorite
Fuzz
guitar
pedal.
Jeff Beck, one of my favorite.
Fuzz pedal. Nice. Nice. Yes. And I think if folks who have listened to the other episodes will remember that I mentioned that I only just got my first fuzz pedal this year.
Mhm.
So I don't think I hated them. It's just that they weren't, I was so into amp distortion that I was unwilling really to use any distortion
Okay,
pedal.
so you've crystallized the problem. Okay, we were taught tube amps and amp distortion is the way,
Yeah,
but it's not the only way.
it
And
is not.
no, and so there is something about now all those players I mentioned, they all use different fuzz pedals.
Yeah.
Of course, there isn't like one fuzz pedal, right?
Well, I
There's
mean, if there was only one fuzz pedal, then only Boss would be making it, and we know that's not true.
right. There's so many. There's so many. And so I learned, oh, and I should have mentioned some of my favorite modern-ish guitar tones. Also, like the other day, I put on the classic rock station and they're like, here's Weezer. And I'm like, go F yourself. What is Weezer doing
Not
on the
classic
classic?
rock.
Stop it. Stop it, radio.
And I like Weezer. I like Weezer.
A lot, but that's not class. Sorry, that is not classic rock. Anyway, the other day when I turned on a fuzz pedal, I'm like, this is Weezer tone. And I've always loved that sound. I mean, it's not like, it's not like a great Guitar Hero sound, but it's like it's got girth to it. I love that.
Yeah.
I love the S and Weezer tone. Anyway, so there's a lot of different fuzz pedals. I think part of the problem I have is that I'm like, well, which one do you get? Do you get the one to sound like Gilmour? Do you get the one to sound like Eric Johnson? You get the one. The answer is you get all of them.
You get all of them.
You get. I'm going to buy. I don't have a problem. Everything's fine.
One whole pedal board of just fuzz pedals.
Just fuzz pedals. No, okay. So why do I love them? I love them because first of all, they sound ridiculous. They're neat. They're neat. It's a neat thing.
Yeah.
They're easy to play. You have to play to a fuzz pedal. You play a fuzz pedal. You can't just turn on a fuzz pedal and expect to play the exact same way you would play without one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So anyone listening who hasn't tried one, just try one, but play it for a minute or so and get used to it and hear what it's doing to your guitar tone. Hear and feel what it feels like to play it and then play to it. If you go in there playing, this is the right tool for the job. It's always about feel what that fuzz pedal feels like. And then play to it. It's like an instrument. Oh, and the other thing is, and Josh Scott said this on his channel, and I wholeheartedly believe this. If you have to play fuzz loud. I encourage you to play loud. If you can hear your pick hitting your strings,
it's not loud enough.
It's not loud enough. You have to play loud. That you can't. So it could mean you got to find a way to play with headphones on, or you crank your amp and forget your neighbors or whatever and just wait till the cops show up. But play loud. But when you play a fuzz pedal, you have to play to the pedal. It's one of those things where you just have to play to it. But it's cool and it's fun to experiment with. And yes, you can make them sound horrible. And I love that. I love that you can make it sound bad and that's okay. Like there's art to that. There's an art to that. You know, we're going to do an episode soon. I'm sorry, I'm on a soapbox. There is no wrong way to do anything in guitar. There is no wrong way. Stop asking questions on forums. What's the right order for my pedals? There is no right way. You know what the right way is? What sounds best to you.
To you. Yeah.
You don't play like me, and I don't play like you, and you don't play like the guys on the forum, and they don't play like me. And there's no right way. Is there a general order? Of course there is. But those rules, no one's going to die if you take your pedals and switch the order. No one is good.
It's okay to put your reverb pedal first if you want to try it out. That's all I'm
Yes,
saying.
it's okay. Who knows what cool sounds? It's okay. Don't ask what the right way to do anything. Yes, there's only two things you can do right in this world. Okay. But this isn't one of them. Guitar, just have fun. There's no right way. Don't worry about people judging. That's what the internet does. Stop that. Just have fun. But with fuzz pedals, I'm not saying there's a right way, but there is a way. Play to the pedal. But once you get used to that, then the gloves are off. Then just have fun. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw down. That's okay. Go knock it out, man. I'm going to throw down a pedal as well, although it's a specific one.
Oh yeah.
And not a generalization. I still struggle with this. I just hate the whole idea of the Klon Centaur. From soup to nuts, and here's why, right?
What?
Okay,
I'm sorry, you don't feel like spending $13,000 on a pedal that
and that's
some guy made
man.
at a card table in his kitchen?
I do. So I actually read up about, you know, how they were invented and sold, and the guy that was making them literally on his card table in his basement. And I'm mad respect for that dude. I wish I could remember his name.
Bill Finnegan.
Thank you, Bill Finnegan. Great idea. Great execution. It's not his fault. It became the go-to pedal for doctors and lawyers and dentists to hold over people who weren't able to get one and make them feel like less than because they didn't have a Centaur, they didn't have a Klon, or they didn't have an original gold case. Right. So, and then, but the flip side of that is because they were so expensive, we had a proliferation of clones. And I am morally opposed to clones in general for the most part, because I think if you steal somebody else's design, then you're part of the problem. And then if you take it and you make it as cheap as possible and you just crank out thousands of units because you can, I think that's part of what's wrong with industry in general. But I do understand why they do it, right? Because nobody, very, very few people, I think the last Centaur I saw sold for $5,000. Mm-hmm. And that guy dropped his price like $800 because he had to move it. He needed a car or an operation.
Oh, it's interesting that when you need a heart surgery or brain surgery, your first instinct is, oh, I'll just sell one of my guitar pedals.
Yeah.
Well, when you have but think about this. So Bill Finnegan, now there's a lot I could say and there's a lot I will say. Okay. The Centaur is really a very original idea. It's,
because it's
not a tube screamer.
Right. It's not a distortion pedal. Mm-mm. It's like a warmer drive. And this industry, the pedal industry, very sketchy. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah.
He had an original idea and executed on it. He got help from an MIT engineer, as you do. And
if you run in those circles.
Yeah. And, he built, it's to the point where, Boss makes a pedal that emulates other overdrives. The Centaur the Boss pedal has its own Centaur setting. They're acknowledging it's not a tube screamer, it's not a distortion, it's not a fuzz, it's its own thing. It is. It's its own new topology. But people don't necessarily talk about Bill Finnegan's contribution to the pedal industry, but it's a big deal. Okay. Now, do I believe the hype around the magic secret diodes? I don't believe it.
Nope.
I don't believe it. Doesn't mean he's not allowed to say it, but and can you hear a difference between a Klon Centaur and any of the million clones? I can't.
I can't. I'll tell you what. So I ended up, I had two clones because I was working on a recording project, and the person who was basically in charge said it would be great if you could kind of get your guitar to sound like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And they sent me some clips. I was like, I happen to know that person uses a Klon.
Okay. And you're like,
So
I'm going to try that.
yeah, I went on strictly as a educational experience, academic experience. I went on Amazon and I bought a $27 Chinese clone. And
How dare you?
I know, and they were perfectly happy with the tone that I used on every song that I used it on.
And then you returned it.
No, actually, I sold it to a friend for $20. So I
So
almost
you were
made
prepared to hate this because Klon.
Yeah, I was prepared to hate it.
And how do you feel about them?
Yeah, I followed up that experience. I got when Warm Audio came out with not just a sonic clone, but a visual clone. I got one. They were $150 and I got one. And I break it out every now and then. It's not on my pedal board, but it is in a swappable place. It is accessible.
So if you need that sound, you know it's there.
Yeah, and
that's cool, man.
And it looks cool, and it gives people a hitch. I did have it on my pedal board for a couple of gigs, and there was more than one person that walked past, looked at my pedal board, stopped, came back,
double
and looked at my pedal board again. You know, so and then and one of them asked me about it, and I was like, yeah, man, I just got that, 2 weeks ago. It was $150. And they're like, dude, it looks exactly like.
Oh, you should have trolled them a little. Yeah, I just got that. It was $8,000.
Yeah, well, and I'm not gonna lie to you, that thought did pass through my mind, but then I remembered that was one of the things I really hated about it before I got it. Was that people they use the fact that they own one as a bludgeon to humiliate you or make you, like I said, make you feel less than, and that is never cool. That is not something I want to be involved in.
Upcoming topic, folks, is toxicity in the community. And Wes and I are both aware that toxicity in the guitar community is not isolated to the guitar community, right?
No, it is not.
But I do think we have our own special brand of toxic behavior in the community, and we'll be discussing that in a future episode. So just be on. Okay, so
your turn again. What were you? Give me another thing you are prepared to hate with red hot passion based on other people's experiences and the things they said, but you tried it and then you loved it.
Yep. I'm going out on a limb with this one. Actually, the Telecaster.
Oh, dude. Oh,
the Telecaster. How do you feel about Telecasters, Wes?
I'll tell you exactly how I feel about Telecasters. I don't like Telecasters. I don't like the way they look. I don't like the way they feel. But you cannot deny the way they sound. Nope. And they are as iconic a sounding guitar as exists. And when you need something that sounds like that, there is nothing else that sounds like that. I don't care who you are or what pickups you put in your guitar. If it ain't a Telecaster, it don't sound like a Telecaster. It might sound close with your near field pickups. There's a little jab.
We're not going.
But I still don't like Telecasters, and I own one because nothing sounds like it. The Telecaster, nothing sounds like it, and the Telecaster is the least forgiving instrument I have ever played in my entire life.
Oh yeah,
you better be dead on with whatever it is you're doing, because if you're not, everybody's going to know it 12 rows back.
Oh yeah, there's no hiding it. So the reason I was prepared to hate it is because there's a lot to hate about a Telecaster.
Oh, there is, absolutely.
The weight, the neck,
yeah,
the pickups,
yeah,
and if you're not prepared for it, the tone.
Yeah, and how about the way that the upper bout carves its way into your forearm as you're playing and grinds down your arm bones into
It is
dust.
as unforgiving as it's sonically as it is physically. Okay, this instrument hates you and wants to kill your family.
There you go.
This
Nailed it.
the Telecaster takes no prisoners.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird that everything we do now is because of the Telecaster?
It really is. It really is.
So I was prepared to hate it, and I did for a while because of all the above. It
Yeah.
was way too heavy, unforgiving physically. Trying to work a decent tone out of a Telecaster, in my opinion, at least what I thought was a decent tone. The thing is, a Telecaster is as it does.
Yeah.
If you're getting a Telecaster, you're going to sound like a Telecaster. End of story. And you just got to be okay with that and know that that's the tone you're getting from it, and be okay with that. You always know when someone's playing one,
Yeah.
and that's
Absolutely.
okay. It's okay. And
It really is.
it really is. And I'll tell you what, not only is it, so I'm never going to pick it up and go do like a Van Halen tribute act. I'm not picking up my Telecaster to learn Bark at the Moon. I'm not
Uh
I'm not playing the latest Periphery riffs on my Telecaster. But when I need a Telecaster sound, or B, to layer just thick, grunting, ugly textures underneath an already heavy guitar to brighten up the track and just make it more three-dimensional, that's what I'm reaching for. And nothing else does it. And I'm sorry, I have two Stratocasters with a blend knob that gives you that bridge and neck pickup together for that Telecaster tone.
yeah, it
No,
doesn't
it
sound
don't.
like a
No, it
Telecaster, does
don't.
it?
I've
No.
recorded them back to back. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It gets you in vicinity. It gets you tele adjacent.
Yeah.
It gets you um near a telly, but it doesn't get you right to Telly's house, ringing the doorbell and
Yeah, because
kissing them
you're
hello.
using Strat pickups.
It's not the same, and it doesn't have that big gigantic body. A Telecaster is the sum of its parts. It's everything. And I hated it for a long time, but I have learned to love that guitar for what it is. Like, it's like you just have to know what it's for.
Yeah.
And now I can't not have one.
Do you want to know how I got my first Telecaster?
Do I want to know?
You want to know? I'm going to tell you the short version of the story, but I will tell you.
All right.
So I'm working at the store, and now I'm fixing guitars, but I'm doing mostly electronics, practicing my soldering skills, setups, that kind of thing. I have a customer comes in one night, and he is clearly emotionally distraught. And he puts his guitar case up on the counter, and he opens it up, and his Telecaster is in pieces.
Ew.
So his wife found out about his girlfriend, and she picked up his Telecaster, which was the one thing in his life that he clearly loved more than either of the women he was involved with. And she held it in her left hand, and she got a hatchet with her right hand, and she hacked it from the horn down.
Okay. That sounds
And
like a horror movie.
This was an original, honest to goodness 1950s Telecaster this guy had since he was like 13 years old, and he was understandably emotionally distraught. And more than that, he had a gig that weekend, and he had one guitar.
Hell hath no fury.
Help me, Obi Bob. Can you help me? Right. So because my boss's name was Bob, help me, Obi Bob. That's why I used to call him Obi Bob. You're my only hope. So Bob said, this is a great opportunity for you to learn how guitar goes together. I don't know where he got it from. He ordered a body from one of his distributors. It came in. It was already painted. It was butterscotch. And he's like, all right, take that guitar apart, put it all back together with the body that is not hatcheted apart, and make it play like a guitar. He's like, go do it. And it took me I think it probably took me it took me 2 whole evenings, like, so the equivalent of one full work day. I'd never done anything like that. And he came back and the guy was like, well, it doesn't sound like it used to, but it's good enough and it'll get me through the gig at least. And we hung on to the body pieces, put it in a box and stuck it up on the counter or stuck it up on the shelf. Probably had that up there for 4 or 5 years. And the guy passed away, and Bob said, well, I guess he's not coming back for his Telecaster body. Do you want it?
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, so here's how clueless I was. So this is what, 94, maybe 1993, 94. And of course, back then, 1950s Telecaster was not a piece of gold like it is now. It was an oar you used to propel a boat. So Bob gave me the thing. He gave me a quick rundown on how hide glue works. He said, you need to try this, you need to try that, fit it, sand it, fit it, sand it, do this, do that, sand it, fit it, sand it, glue it, clamp it. You only get one shot at it, then sand it. And I had it painted bird's egg blue by a guy who painted cars, and I put a Warmoth neck on it and routed it out for a humbucker.
So a real
Yeah,
pickup.
yeah, I did. Routed it out for a humbucker. I may have routed it out for 2 humbuckers. I do not remember that. And that was my first Telecaster, and I used that guitar a lot. And it never mattered to me that it was an iconic body under there. It was just a good story. That guy whose wife hatcheted his prize Telecaster part. So
Man.
that's how I got my first Telecaster. There you go.
All right, your turn. What's
Uh,
and then I want to move on to gear we were told to love, or else we were going to
yeah.
be excommunicated.
So when I was first starting out, I was basically like dude shamed, guitar shamed for having a PV Bandit as my only amplifier. Now the PV Bandit was it was a learner's amp. It was a low budget. I think I paid $100 for mine used from a guy that was the ex-boyfriend of a girl I knew in school, kind of thing. Um, PV Bandit. It was 100% solid state. The clean was decent. The drive channel, you had to play it like it owed you money, because otherwise it just didn't sound like anything remotely good. But I got so much grief for that I started to almost hate myself for having a cheap amp.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, the store that I worked at carried Crate, also cheap amps.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw myself once again passing on bad information and discouraging some of my students from buying a Crate because they were a quote good guitar player.
Okay.
So I did my part to perpetuate the shame, which I'm not proud of. But as I kind of grew up a little bit emotionally and mentally, I came to realize the very, very important part that budget amps play in the life of a guitar player.
Right.
And as we talked about in our tube amp episode, there are a lot of solid state amps that sound perfectly good. It's all
Yeah.
about how you use them. And I think your attitude going in, you can make a solid state amp sound good. And I had a number of Crate amps later that I was very happy to use in public. I used a Crate amp, a Crate tube amp with my hard metal band that I played in for several years, and the thing sounded fantastic. So
I first of all, kudos to you. I used a Crate solid state head and 412 cabinet in a metal band in the early 90s for a while. And I took the nameplate off the amp because I would get compliments on my tone.
And you didn't want people to know it was a
And
crate.
then people would have to walk up and say, "What are you using?" And then I'd look them dead in the eyes and say, "It's a crate. It's a crate. It's
Yeah.
$150." But I mean, if you know how to set, I'm talking, if you know how to set up a good solid state amp, this thing sounded, it sustained. I used to get that harmonic feedback out of it on stage. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Oh, and it would clean up. It better than it deserved to sound.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we recorded, I was like, "Can you believe what this sounds like?" And I'm like, "You should take the nameplate off that. That way people have to ask you what that is." I'm like, "I'm doing it. I'm doing that."
Don't it?
And it
Yeah.
actually had it resembled, you remember Yamaha made a solid state amp back in the early 80s? It was
Nope.
like,
Didn't
okay,
remember that.
G100 or something. They made it for a while. It resembled that with like the knobs or the colored heads. And
Okay.
so, is that a Yamaha? No, nah, it's a
No.
crate. Nah, it's
Crate.
a crate. They got it at Sam Good. Got it at a record store.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now the flip side of all this stuff that we thought we were going to hate, but we figured out later on that we actually liked, sometimes even loved. The flip side of that is gear that we've been programmed to love,
Ordered, instructed,
ordered, brainwashed to love, and then our experience, you and me personally, you and me, Andrew, we do not like these things. And I'm going to tell you guys out there in podcast listening land, we have the same item number one on our list, and that is
Wait,
every Les Paul ever.
ever,
I
ever.
was that was the ultimate end all be all. If you did not have a Les Paul, you were not a serious guitar player.
You can just
Period. End of story.
you can hear the unsubscribe, unsubscribe,
Yeah.
unsubscribe. I'm drop. It's not, no insult to Les Pauls. Some of them are amazing.
Yeah. And when you think about the people who got famous playing Les Pauls, or maybe not got famous playing Les Pauls, but are famous and are associated with Les Pauls, you got the one, the only Jimmy Page, right? Who everybody knows now used a Telecaster for a lot of his recording work, but he loved the Les Paul for live work, and that was his go-to. And you know, you listen to The Song Remains the Same, the live album, and there is no denying how good that thing sounds.
There's
right?
there's a Les Paul in the hands of every professional guitar player that I love at one point or another.
Yeah.
Not every, I'm sure John Petrucci never picked one up, but you can hear Jeff Beck on them. You heard Jimmy Page on them.
Yeah.
You can Eric Clapton use them from time to time. Some of the Allman stuff. I don't love the Allmans, but you can't deny that the Allmans had some great tones.
Yeah.
And then think of just modern stuff. I mean, Slash. Some people are just
exactly.
When have you seen Slash without one? And look,
he played a BC Rich in the "You Should Be Mine" video.
Yeah, he did. Thank you for proving me wrong. But okay, so let's get into why this at the top of both of our lists. We did not coordinate this effort.
No,
I made my list and then you made your list. Okay, first, I have never played one I liked, and that's because I don't like the design. It's the design. There will never be a Les Paul I like. Doesn't matter how well it's made. This is not a knock on Gibson quality, or I don't like the design. I don't like it. There's something about the angle, the break angle of the neck from the body, and then the way the headstock. I don't like it. I don't like the weight. And even if you weight relieve them, I feel like then I'm not playing a Les Paul anymore. It's I don't know what I'm playing, but I don't like the neck angle, the angle of the neck, and I don't like just that there's just, I don't like it. I'm so
it's okay. It's okay.
I'm sorry. I am just sorry. I've tried. I have bought more Les Pauls than I care to admit. Just like it's them and Morley wah pedals. I keep buying less. Why? I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
But
and I'm right there with you, man. And I thought,
why do I keep doing it?
Because you're clearly insane. I thought of two more. John Sykes from the big White Snake album and Blue Murder,
Blue
uh,
Murder, dude. The tones
and
on those records,
Zach Wild. Right?
and
You
you
think of
love
Zach
Zach Wild,
Wild,
right?
you equal Zach Wild equals Les Paul, right? And
Jerry
I
Cantrell used a Les Paul a lot.
he's got a signature Les Paul.
Monstrous tones. Alex Lifeson toured with one for years.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great guitars.
Neil Schon.
Dude's a monster. I mean, look, the list goes on and on.
On and
So
on.
for me, it's the design, not so much the weight, because I play sitting down most because I'm old, but it's the design. For what is it for you?
It's you know what, it's the same thing as a Telecaster. I think there is something about the single cutaway style that does not resonate with me.
Okay.
I've had half a dozen Les Pauls in my life, and I'll tell you this, even all of them sounded fantastic. They sounded great. They even played, most of them played great. I had a 1978 Les Paul Custom with a maple neck and a maple fingerboard, and that was an amazing guitar for something that weighed 12 pounds, literally 11 pounds, 15 ounces. The thing was, and it sounded so good, and it played so good, and I got rid of it because I am clearly not a Les Paul person. I just did it again, Andrew. I bought a Les Paul in October of 2022, and I sold it in April of 2023.
What is wrong? What is wrong? Why do we do? We're fine. Everything's fine,
Yeah.
Wes. There's a reason we do this, right?
But there's something in my programming from the early days that says I have to have a Les Paul.
Right. The problem is you, and you're going to fix it one way or the other.
But you know what? I had a PRS single cut. I've had 3 or 4 of those. I don't keep those either. And those are fantastic.
Yep.
And I've had both what they now call core, which we all used to just call PRS guitars. And I've had some SEs, which were decent guitars, good guitars. And I play other things. I don't own a single Gibson right now. I sold my last Gibson that I'd hung on to, and I don't own any Gibsons right now, and I'm okay with that, man.
I am too. I can't do it. There's something about the design, and I know, look, they're iconic. They sound good. They play good. They're a feat of engineering. I get it. It's definitely a me thing that it's just the design. I never liked the Les Paul. I don't like like, I've talked about it, but for some reason I continue to, like, every couple years I'll say,
I need a Les Paul.
Maybe it's time to try, because what did we say about Telecasters? Nothing sounds like it. I don't know that I agree with that with a Les Paul. I do think
I would say I disagree. Because I've got a guitar that sounds a lot like, you couldn't tell it's not a Les Paul if I didn't tell you.
I have a McCarty 594 hanging on the wall right now, and I will tell you, it is the best Les Paul I have ever owned.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I guess we should go on to the next item. And remember, this is gear we were told to love unconditionally,
or else you were a failure as a guitar player.
Be fired out of a cannon straight into the sun. For me,
that sounds so warm.
Straight into the sun with you. The Mesa Dual Rectifier.
Oh yeah, for a metal guitarist, man, if you didn't have a Mesa, you were nothing.
They ruled the roost in the 90s. You couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting someone that owned, what kind of gear do you have? Do you have a dual rec? No, I don't. And it's not because it's expensive. It's because it sounds like I'm playing a sponge. I don't get. And then eventually I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to buy. I hear all the dual rec players out there, jackasses, unsubscribe, gatekeeping. No, it's not your dual rec. It's me.
Yeah.
There's something about the sound I never warmed up to. I don't. And I think part of it is it was everywhere. It was everywhere. You couldn't avoid it if you were listening to, what was it called? Nu metal back in the 90s.
NU with an umlaut.
NU. Oh God, with the umlaut. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cringe. All right, but I didn't. So okay, first I was like, okay, everyone has one. I don't want one because everyone has one, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be different. That's
How'd
in
that
when you're
work
near,
out for you?
not great. I was excommunicated. I was like, you're a loser. What are you playing?
What are you
That's a
showing up here with your crate?
loser. So eventually I'm like, all right, it must be me. I bought one and I tried one. Um, okay, the the clean channel was eh,
Good. Yeah,
eh,
I liked the clean channel on the Mesa.
not a huge fan. It was like
Yeah.
eh. And then like so I had one of the early ones first, and then the gain channel. I'm like, well, if I set here was my big problem with them. Again, this is a me thing.
Uh,
When I set it up to sound good for rhythm, I didn't like the lead tone,
and vice versa.
even
Yeah.
boosted. And if you set it up for a good lead tone, I didn't like the rhythm tone.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, is it me? Well, then
Yeah.
I
Yeah. It
sold
is
it.
you though.
I sold it and bought another one. Now this time it was the the with the orange and the red and like
Uh-huh.
and again, I'm like, I couldn't get like I kept trying. But remember, when I'm saying I'm trying, I mean in a band setting. I'm
Right.
playing in a cover band that plays metal. It's supposed to be its wheelhouse, right?
Yeah. You're supposed to be able to plug a Les Paul into that and sound like magic.
Okay. I couldn't do it. And you're probably thinking, well, you're just a garbage player. You might be
Nah.
right. You might be
Nah.
right. Maybe I'm a garbage player.
Nah.
But
Not
I
today.
could not today. Okay. I didn't like it. One, it did not cut through the mix at all. It blended in with every other instrument. There was no way to make it. And I knew how to dial in an amp. I'm just
Yeah.
saying I know how, and I tried. So that didn't work. And then I sold that one and got another one.
And got
I
another one.
kept trying. Why am I'm fine. It's okay. It's all right.
It's
I don't have
okay.
a problem buying gear. I'm okay. It's not like I went through 4 different Mesa dual rectifiers before I finally gave up. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
okay.
I
Where I
settled.
settled, by the way, was a Rivera.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
tell you
Great
something.
amps.
Solved every problem I ever had with the dual rec. It cut. The clean tones were godly, had a
Yeah.
great rhythm sound, had a great lead tone. It cut like no one's business. And I'm telling you, it was so forgiving to play that it solved every problem. Now it was a little bit more expensive and harder to get because it wasn't like everyone carried Riveras back then,
Right.
but it did solve every problem I had. So
Good. I'm
for
glad
me,
to
the
hear that.
best sounding Mesa I ever had, Mesa Dual Rec, was a Rivera. Sorry, just
Yeah.
saying. Okay. Anyway,
I played in a metal band with as a bass player, and the guitar player played a recto verb. And that thing was a great amp. It was a great amp.
thank you. That was the gem. So that said recto. So everyone's like, well,
It's a dual rec, but
it
wasn't.
wasn't a dual rec. It was
No.
a very different amp, and that was the gem in the collection. I had one of those, and that I kept for a long time.
Yeah. I got a combo right now,
That,
combo 112 recto
that's
verb.
what I had, and it
It
was
weighs
loud.
96 pounds.
It does. It
Oh,
does. I
it's
eventually had
huge.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the way out, but I got to hire somebody to carry it down the stairs, to be perfectly honest. So since okay, we're programmed to love Les Pauls, and you and I don't. We were programmed to love dual recs, and you and I don't. Now that doesn't mean nobody does. I actually worked for a band that played regionally, and we went on a cross country tour once, and one guitar player was a trio, had a dual rec, and with one guitar in the band and a good sound man, it sounded really good.
Yeah.
But he had both of us there to dial it in. He would get the sound he wanted, and I would make it sound like that in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked together.
I just want to quickly tell you that I've heard
Hit me.
more guitar players tell this same story. Steve Lukather, Ted Nugent, I forget how others. They toured with Eddie Van Halen and finally had a chance to use his gear.
Yeah.
And what they did was they got to play his guitar through his rig, and they sounded just like themselves.
Right.
Not
Yep.
like Eddie Van Halen. So my point to this, as I know people like their Les Pauls and dual Recs, and you are absolutely allowed to. Again, no rules, right? This is not about what you don't like. It's about what I don't like. I'm always going to sound like me, and I just never could make it work. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
they're not good. I never said the dual rec was a bad amp. I'm just saying I could never make it work for me, despite
Yeah.
multiple attempts at trying. I just couldn't make it work. So I just want to, I don't know. Like, I think we're all adults here, and I'm sure that
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
are listening, but I don't know. I just want to make sure it's clear that no one in here is gatekeeping.
Nope. Nope.
You're allowed
Not
to
at
love
all.
your dual recs. And obviously Mesa did very well for themselves selling that amp.
And a lot of people do very well for themselves playing that amp.
Yep.
No
Yep.
shame.
Weirdly, I have got a Kemper and I've got some Mesa dual rec profiles that I really like
that I use all the time.
and use them all the time. So it's certainly not like it's the amp itself.
So
All right.
we're going to pile on, right? So here's the
make
programming. You had to have a Les Paul, you had to plug it into a dual rec, and you had to plug dual rec into a 412.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you don't have a 412, you're nothing.
You're a weak,
if you don't have a 412, you're crap. Your tone is lacking. You suck. You're never going to get anywhere. Your mother doesn't even like you.
No. What do you wait? Did you walk into a gig with a 212 cabinet? You must have been ashamed of yourself.
Oh, do you know what I use right now?
a 112 combo.
Oh yeah, yeah, combos. Actually, I dislike 412s for one major reason: the weight. Okay, two reasons: the size and the weight. If you don't have a truck, a pickup truck or a large SUV, how are you getting that to a gig?
Mm-hmm.
You got to have somebody. It's too big to carry down a set of stairs by yourself, right? So unless you live, work, rehearse, and record in a ranch, a single level house, then you're going up and down stairs with a 412, and you got to have somebody help you. How many people? Okay, right now, hands up. How many people in the room want to help me carry a 412 speaker cabinet? Yeah, that's what I thought. Nobody.
And by the way, first of all, what gig are you playing that makes a 412 necessary?
Yeah, I used I think the last time I used a 412 might have been the first time I ever really played on a stage that was appropriate for it. I was playing a massive outdoor gig on the Capitol, DC Pride, and it was huge. It was massive. The stage was huge. The sound system was huge. Everything was huge. And so I took a 412.
Okay.
Right. And that was the last time I took it, because I had to carry it down the stairs out of my basement, put it into an SUV. I could not have anything by myself. And then I had to carry it from the parking lot to the back of the stage trailer. And then I had to carry it up the steps by myself. I almost left it there.
All right. When the sound guy mic'd your 412,
he mic'd one speaker.
So what did the other three speakers do?
Make me happy.
Right.
You walked right into that.
All right, I did.
And that was right into that.
So, but I mean, the loudest amp I ever played was okay. The loudest amp I ever played was 100, supposed to be a Marshall SLO, was the Marshall I owned that I never should have sold. The second loudest amp I ever played was a Vox AC 30
212 cabinet,
212 combo.
Yeah.
30 watts compared to 120 watts. Now, I will say this. We all know that the 30 watt rating and 100 watt, we all know that that's exponential, right? And that
right.
30 and okay. But that 212 combo was so loud, it broke a window. It cracked a window in the basement. Cracked a window in the basement. That was
pretty awesome.
When I tell you why I love tube amps, I'm telling you this thing, it was stupid loud. But it was in the shop and we both wanted to hear, okay, what does it sound like to crank an AC 30?
Yeah, now you know.
Now we know.
Windows.
It's, when are you going to get to do that again?
Never.
When, right. So I'm just saying it's very loud. But 412s are so impractical. There isn't a gig. There isn't a gig. In fact, again, live playing with a very loud band, I played for a long time with a Carmen Gia 112 18-watt as a pedal platform and was frequently told to turn down
Oh yeah. I
my
get told to turn
18
down all the time. Yeah.
412 cabinets. All right. I have
All right.
one more.
You give me one more and then I'll give you one more.
All right. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to troll you a little
Okay, troll me.
because I am going to, here, I'm flipping the script, as
Oh
they say
no.
at work. I'm flipping the script. You are going to convince me to love expensive high-end boutique cables.
Oh
I
no.
don't get it. I don't get it. Look, I make my own cable. I don't have a problem. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
I just admitted on the internet that I make my own cables from time to time.
Hey,
Yes.
good for you, man. That's an important skill to be able to, if you can make a cable, you can repair a cable. And that is an absolutely critical day of, night of, hour of the gig skill to have.
I'll never buy another cable. No, I'm not saying that, but okay. But I did it. It's a labor of love. So
Yeah.
I had the time and um, I wanted to, it's like, I've always wanted to try it. I know how to solder. I've put pickups in and I made a pedal board and I started getting into it and I'm like, I'm going to make my own patch cables. And I'm like, well, I'll make my own DC power cables. And then, well, I'm going to make my own cables and my own speaker cables. And I started doing
That's
it
impressive.
and I enjoyed it. But not only did I enjoy it, but it taught me, like, now I know how these things work
Yeah.
and like
Why they
getting
fail.
and why they fail. Right. And but now that I know that, I'm thinking it's cable, it's a jack, and it's solder.
Yeah.
If I can make one for next to nothing, I don't understand what an expensive cable is giving me. And I'm not saying I never tried one. A long time ago, and I don't remember the brand, and I am not going to name and shame because I don't want to do that. But a long time ago, I bought an expensive cable. I bought into the hype, despite the fact that I had a feeling I was going into it a little skeptical, but I said, I want to see if I hear the difference. Now, I didn't hear the difference. Now, I'm not saying I plugged it into my Kemper and a pair of headphones.
Right. Right.
I had an amp, I had a decent guitar, no pedals, nothing in an effect loop. I couldn't hear a discernible difference. Now, maybe I don't have great ears, and that's okay. But I didn't hear it. And so I thought, I tried, it failed. I'm moving on with my life.
Right.
What am I missing?
So here's what I think you're missing, but this is in no way meant to tell you if you don't have a boutique cable, your tone sucks, because that is something I do not believe. Right. So I use handmade cables from a company called Rattlesnake. I believe they are headquartered in Montana, where they make all their products. They make more than just cables. And I'll tell you, here's why I buy their cables. They're durable as all get out. I never worry about stepping on them, people rolling stuff over them. They've got a like a woven sheath over them that's some kind of material, space age material. They are, high quality, void free, et cetera, that all the boutique buzzwords. But they're handmade in the United States, one at a time. They use good ends. You can get them straight or right angle, and I like that. And you decide, right? So there's some configurability. And here's the thing: they came up with an idea that I have always, that I wish I had told somebody about this when I thought of it, because I could have started a company making cables, right? So Rattlesnake calls this the snake head. And basically what they do is they stop the sheath short of the end of the cable. They leave about a foot or so out of it. So those of us like me who are cable through the strap people
Mm-hmm.
don't ever have to worry about gunging up the bottom of their guitar with a cable that has gotten abrasive,
Oh, okay.
right?
Okay.
Because it's just that smooth vinyl right there, that
Okay.
sheath. And I just loved that idea. I loved it 25 years ago when I thought of it. This is what they should do. And I ruined a couple of cables trying to do it. I really did. And
Wow,
these guys
interesting.
are doing it at Rattlesnake, and they're doing it well. And hey, I'm going to be honest with you. All my speaker cables are pink because they made me pink speaker cables. And now I don't have to worry about figuring out which cable in my box of cables is a friggin' speaker cable.
Oh
I just
man,
grab the pink one.
that's awesome. I love that actually because that's my biggest problem. Is this speaker or is this right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I ain't got to worry about it. I got 4 pink speaker cables of different
Oh,
lengths,
that's
and that's
awesome,
what I
man.
use them. And so they're easy to get to. They're easy to identify. Never have to worry about it. And yeah, they're a little more expensive. Now, do they sound better than my average run of the mill, cables? I like to think they do. Maybe they do in my mind a little bit. Realistically, they probably don't sound better, but I expect them to last longer. And here's the thing, if I have a problem with one, I
Hmm.
know I can call Rattlesnake and say, "Hey, I'm having this problem with my cable. Is this something that I can fix, or do I need to replace it, you know, to help me out here a little bit, little customer support." And they're super responsive. And you can't do that with a Mogami or Planet Waves or whatever. You're just not going to get that level of customer support that you get from a small company. And that's really, when we say boutique, that's really what we're saying is small company,
That's what I think of, right?
you know.
Okay, interesting.
So
Well,
yeah, but do you
okay.
have to I would consider your cables are boutique cables. You're hand making them one at a time to your specifications. Brother, that is a boutique cable. You're just
There it
doing it
is.
yourself.
There it is.
You want to make me some cables?
Different strings cables.
I'm impressed that you wired your own power cables, though. That to me is it that like, okay, now I know Andrew's a little crazy.
Yeah, well, okay. So, let's be honest. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem.
It's not a problem.
Might have forgotten to take my meds a couple of days, but I don't have a problem. Here's the thing. I bought the Chox power supplies. They're the ones that
They have the
unlike
weird cables, the
unlike
RCA ends.
every other
Yeah,
son of a gun, unlike every other manufacturer, they use DC ends.
yeah.
Or I'm sorry, RCA ends.
RCAs, yeah. That's
Okay.
why I didn't get one, because I have this nightmare that I'll be at a gig and I'll have a power cable fail, and I'll grab one of the guitar players from the other band and go, "Hey, can I borrow a power cable off your pedal board?" And they'll go, "Sure, here you go." And it doesn't fit my Chox power supply.
I know, man. RCA, and you have to, if the pedal is center negative, the RCA end is center positive. So
Oh
you
no,
you
I'm
have
already
to,
lost.
I know. So it's not, let's put it, I know, let's put it this way. It's labor of love. I'm fine. I'm not saying I spent several weeks wiring a pedal board. No, I'm not
But
saying
you're
I did that.
not saying it
I'm
either.
not saying I'm fine. Everything's fine. My meds, I'm taking my meds. They're all right there. They're fine. Everything's okay. Everyone's worried about me. I don't know what's going on. All right. You're up. One more. You were told to love it, or else your family was going to be swimming with the fishes.
Floyd Rose Bridges. And by extension, every double locking system ever, right? Because think about when we came up playing guitar, right? The ultimate guitar in the late 80s, early 90s was a super strat with a double locking, preferably Floyd Rose, because if it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't Floyd Rose and it was some knockoff, even if it was a Schaller's version of the double locking was better than the Floyd Rose, but it wasn't a Floyd Rose. Floyd,
Right.
we're buddies, I call him Floyd, came up with that idea and he knocked it out of the park, executed to the nth degree. And if you didn't have one of those, you were a failure as a rock guitar player in the late 80s, early 90s. And I'll tell you what, I had a number of them, and I have two guitars with one
Yeah.
is an actual no, actually I take that back. Neither one is a Floyd Rose. They're both Floyd Rose licensed. One
Okay.
is a Kaler Floyd Rose licensed, which if you know the history of those companies, that's like, driving a Chevy that has a Ford badge on it.
Hmm.
And the other is an Ibanez, and those I think they dealt with their licensing with Floyd Rose a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, but they are finicky, they're hard to set up, they have to be meticulously maintained, lubricated, cleaned. If you let them go, they will rust and then they will suck and they will just be impossible. You will break parts, and if you break parts, you cannot find them. The Kaler is a Spider 2720 Spider. It's a great bridge, but it was put on the guitar in 1989.
I remember I had an HM Strat.
Yeah, and you know what? Luckily you can still find parts for it because they made a lot of those things, and there's a couple of companies out there that are still, flying the freak flag high for the Floyd Rose. I was able to get a replacement bar and a couple other things,
Wow.
but I don't want to have to do that
Let me
again. I don't
tell
want
you,
to worry about it.
whose idea was it at
Floyd.
Fender? No, 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 you son of
No, no.
whose idea on that HM Strat? They should be strung up by their testes. The person who decided that the Allen wrench for tightening down the locking nut would be teeny
Dude,
tiny and so easy to strip those. The Floyd has a great, what is it, 3 millimeter size? Why would you change that to a smaller size? It's so much harder. And they strip. Whose idea was that? They should be strung up by the testicles
I
in the
think I
public
think
square and beaten with electric
somebody at the
eels.
Floyd Rose Corporation probably said, "Yeah, you can do that, but you got to change that, or we'll sue you." I
Well,
don't
that was
know,
a
man.
smart move because that was all three of mine got stripped out.
I got a wrench kit for my Spider 2720, and it has 6 wrenches in it, and you have to use them all to completely disassemble or reassemble the bridge.
Oh,
Six different sizes of Allen wrenches. I kid you not. Floyd Rose, you could do it with 3.
yeah.
The whole system. You can even take it off the guitar.
And let's be honest, even that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's one more than you
Okay.
need.
I have 3 guitars. They all have genuine Floyds on them. I mean, I don't have just 3. I have a lot of
Right.
guitars.
You have
Okay. Please.
3 with Floyd's.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I'm a big shot. I have a lot of guitars. Okay. I mean, not as many as Philip McKnight. That dude's got a problem.
Uh,
He might have an illness.
he may.
I have 3 guitars with Floyds. I will give you all of them if you just tell me I don't have to adjust them anymore.
Oh, dude.
I am so tired. Oh, my string's slightly out of tune. Okay, I'll adjust the fine tuner. What? I'm out of room on the fine tuner. I have to
Yeah.
unlock the locking. I don't understand. These are supposed to be super stable, never go out of tune. What am I doing wrong? I think I'm stretching the strings enough. I've been doing setups, professionals. I've done professional setups. I
Yeah.
know what is wrong with these things.
There's a
Why am I
there's a window between the strings have stretched enough to stay in rock solid in tune, and the strings are now dead. There's a window, and it depends on the player and the brand of strings. It can be as short as 14 minutes, which is the time between an avocado is too hard and an avocado is overripe and turns brown is 14 minutes. It's between 14 minutes and 2 days, and the trick is hitting that sweet spot. And yeah, it's not fun. And
Oh,
but you had to have one, or what, at least when I was coming up, if you had a super strat that didn't have a Floyd Rose on it, man, you were a loser.
loser. And by the way, oh, you need a Floyd to do bar flutters? No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. Ask Jeff Beck. Well, not right now, but ask Jeff Beck if you need. My Tyler, you can do bar flutters on a Godo 510
Yeah.
easily. It's not about the bridge, it's about the springs in the back. You got to balance it. I look for what it is. Oh, do you cut the ball ends off, or do you string the string through the tuner and do like the reverse, like alternate reality
So
stringing?
So here's what I do with a lot of things. I read the owner's manual and I do what the manufacturer says to do.
Well, they say to cut the ball end off.
They say to cut the ball end off. I cut the ball end off.
Okay. All right. I was just curious, because a lot of people out there on the interwebs, they do this thing where they string the guitar
Backwards.
through the tuner
Yeah.
and then cut it off at the end and then put it in. You don't do that? You don't like doing that?
I don't do that. No, I don't do
Let
that.
me tell you why
I
that's
think
really
it looks
bad.
cool when other people do that, though.
Yeah, it's really bad. So if you're doing this, stop doing it. There's a couple you remember earlier I said there's no right or wrong way. There is.
There's a couple few things that
Okay.
are like, best practices.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Have you looked at the ball end of your string? They put extra windings around that
To secure it.
Yep. If you put the ball end through your tuner and then tighten your tuner, you're going to gouge your tuner, the post with that. It's going to eventually start working its way, and you don't want that. So I know earlier I said there's no right or wrong way with music. I meant with music, but with physics and engineering, the manual says cut the ball end off, and there's a reason for that. So I know the little balls look cool up there, and if they're different colors, it look like a little bit of a Christmas tree. Don't do that. Or if you do it, be prepared for the damage that it may cause. I'm just saying that could happen. Okay.
You could be replacing your tuners sooner than you want to.
Yeah, the ball end doesn't go there. It doesn't go there. Your balls go in one place, is what I'm saying. Put your balls where they belong.
Oh, and I think that's a great point, a great time to remind everybody, tell us what you loved or hated or felt programmed to love by your guitar community. Put it in the comments. Let us know. Send us an email. What's the email address again, Andrew?
So you can email us at differentstringspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/diffstringspod. YouTube, we are at Different Strings Podcast. Facebook, just search for Different Strings Podcast. It's not that hard. And on Instagram, different.strings.pod. And if you're already on YouTube, throw it in the comments. What do you like that you didn't think you're going to like? What do you hate that you
were supposed to love?
You were supposed to love. Just tell us about that stuff. And
really what we're doing, I don't think people have cottoned onto this yet. The whole point of this podcast is for us to find out other cool gear so that we can obsess over more stuff that we don't have and spend money we shouldn't on more gear. That's the whole point of this podcast.
No, we don't have problems. We're fine. It's okay. No, we're fine. We're fine.
So with that, we're going to move on to dessert, which is our music that matters segment. And I'm going to throw a big old monkey wrench into things.
I must prepare the audience for this.
You must prepare. Okay, audience, prepare.
Okay, I need you to understand what we're dealing with here. I've known Wes longer than my son's been alive.
True.
When I first met him, he scared the crap out of me. He's extremely tall. He's broad. I'm a
big boy.
He casts a large shadow.
I am the brute squad.
But he is extremely gentle, very intellectual, and fun. There's a reason I do this with him, because I enjoy his company. I might have a man crush on him, but I'm fine. Everything's okay. I'm not stalking him. But he also is into Iron Maiden and Queen. Like, he likes rock.
Yeah.
Rock. He likes rock music. He likes Mastodon, music with testicles. When he threw this out there, he scared me. He scared me. I'm legitimately upset. Like, it's very unsettling that this album is in his collection and that he made me listen to it.
All right. And without further ado, now that you're all queued up for that. So I want to set the background, and I mentioned it earlier. The music that my parents listened to turned into the music that I listened to. I started to explore with Queen and Iron Maiden in the early 1980s. A little bit of Van Halen. When I got back to the States, of course, it was all hair metal out of LA. I love that stuff. Even to this day, I listen to Dokken's Back for the Attack today. But Kraftwerk was one of the biggest bands in Europe when I was coming up in the late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was Euro synth pop, man. And well, I don't know if I'd call Kraftwerk pop, because they were so dark. They were so German and so dark and so brooding. I mean,
well, you said German, so dark and brooding is almost like
exactly. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. Study history, you'll figure it out. But it was keyboards. It was everything that I did not like about rock, except Van Halen 1984, keyboards all over it, and it worked. Queen had an album called The Works that came out in 1984.
Oh, yeah.
Some fantastic keyboard stuff going on that album, right? So keyboards are not, at this point, are not anathema to me. But a keyboard band with no guitar player at all, not going to happen. Except in 1981, there's a British synth pop band called the Human League with 3 lead singers, 2 women and 1 man. And they had no guitar player. They had like 4 keyboard players, and they used synth drums. They didn't even use real drums, Andrew. No. And in 1981, they put out an album called Dare, with an exclamation point, Dare. And my friend Stan turned me onto this album. I was at his house. We were watching movies or doing stupid crap that 13-year-olds kids do, messing with computers. And he played this album that his sister had just got, and it was this Dare. And I was transfixed. I'd never heard anything like that before, because it was synth pop, but it wasn't gloomy. And then, of course, this is the album that has probably their biggest hit, Don't You Want Me, right? It's on this album. They had another hit a little bit later on with Human, something, I'm only human, blah, blah, blah. I heard it on the radio coincidentally just yesterday. So that was a nice treat. But this album, Dare, it's got some bouncy stuff on it. It's got some heavier topic stuff. It's got a pretty dark sounding instrumental called Get Carter that segues smoothly into a song that is definitely very dark called I Am the Law, which is very, like, you listen to it and it's, gloomy and dystopian and all that kind of stuff. And so this was also kind of right at the top of now in Europe, this was pre-hair metal, right? So the androgynous look was they were a little ahead over there. You couldn't really tell from the album cover if that person was a man or a woman, which was weird, and now it's not so weird and we don't think too much of it. But back then, seeing a dude with lipstick and eyeliner was not an everyday kind of thing. But this album is so good. It's so musically dense and creative, and it made me, as I've listened to it over the years, it's made me rethink how I approach guitar, especially in layering guitars and creating sonic space for multiple instruments, and to make sure that everything comes through and everything is heard and everything sounds good. And frankly, man, it's just got some great songs on it. So there you go. The Human League, Dare, 1981. That's my music that matters.
I'm telling you, that was such a surprise for me. But when you gave me homework, you said, I'm sure you don't have this, so listen to it. And we did. So, Tracy and I gave it an honest listen. Now, obviously I knew the hit song from the record, and I was a kid when it came out.
Which is the last song. It's the last song on side 2.
Yeah. Do we talk about that? Right? Like, their hit was the last song.
Yeah.
That is a bold move. I went in expecting to not like it, right? Because I don't remember liking it as a kid, but
Yeah.
giving it an honest listen with, open ears, so to speak, and an open mind, I could hear why it appeals to you. And it's good. It is catchy. It's not something I would always listen to, but listening to it for what it is. First of all, my wife had this cassette. She remembered having it, which is neat. So it was like very nostalgic.
Yeah.
And it's not something I would ever have listened to without prompting, but listening to it, I thought, this is good. And remember, it's a time when this was very different. This was not run of the mill like this. Everyone was doing this to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
really, it was just, it's the three of them. And what I like about this is, what's his name? Oki.
Sure. I
Uh,
don't know the dude's name.
yeah. He apparently, before this album, it was just him singing, and he went into a club and saw these two dancers, and he's like, "You're with me now in the band." And it was what they needed. It was like,
Yeah.
imagine having the ability to look at what you're doing and say, it's not working, they can make it work. And it did. And I love that he did that, like that whole 180. You can see how this, in my opinion, you can hear how this band influenced for other bands. Like
Oh
they
yeah, absolutely.
this was everywhere, and
Yeah.
arguably that hit was like a blueprint for how to make a good pop song. So
Yep.
I definitely, it's music that matters 100%. And
Yeah.
I like the backstory with you. Like I now that I know, I mean, I knew you were an army brat, so I knew you lived in Europe, but thinking about it, yeah, I can see why you might be a little bit more open to something like this. Synth pop was in your house,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
you grew up near it.
yeah, and just I still love listening to it today. I also went back and listened to it again before forwarding it for this segment. Um, and somewhere along the line, I got the CD version. I have it on LP from when I was a kid. I still have the LP, but I got the CD version, which has two bonus tracks on it that didn't make the original album, and it sounds like songs they never wrote lyrics for, but it's just fun to listen to that. And I would go so far as to say, you know, if you take the Human League and other bands that were influenced by them in the 80s out, you don't get Nine Inch Nails. There's
Mm,
no space for that without this early 80s synth pop music.
okay.
And I think Trent Reznor picked up on that combination of darkness and energy from early Euro synth pop, added guitars and aggression to it, and really elevated the whole concept of synthesizer driven rock and roll.
And I love how that, if you think about it, synth pop, it never stopped being a thing. It
That
never
is
stopped.
100% correct.
It's still there. It's still it. I'm not a synth player, but I have some software synthesizers. And what are we always trying to accomplish? We're always trying to get like that analog tone.
Yeah.
We're still chasing things that were on records 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But what I've learned about that is it's always been there throughout the years. That synth pop's always been there.
Yep.
It's not died out. It's not gone away. It's still there. And every year, every decade, there's synth pop bands. They're everywhere, and they're all doing some version of what Human League did,
Yep.
which says something about that style. Like it lives on. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, very good. I'm glad you got into it. I'm glad you took me seriously when I put this album
Yeah,
forward. So
absolutely.
I appreciate that. Now, when we come back next time, we're going to have our first Music That Matters segment involving an album that both Andrew and I agree is an absolute classic in the Music That Matters movement. So it's the first time that we've come up with an album together, and we're going to talk about that one. And until then, we hope that you stay playing, get out there, do your practicing, do your scales, get that all under control, and get out there and make some music, man. Go have some fun with it, and let us know what you're doing in the comments. Let us know you know, the gear that you're using. Definitely interested in that. because Andrew says I need to have more than one fuzz pedal, and right now I only have one.
No, you need several. Several fuzz. We're fine. We don't have a problem.
We're fine. No problem.
One fuzz is okay, right? No, you need more. All right. Have a great week. Talk to you guys soon. And when we get next topic, sneak preview. Useful tools, not just our nicknames, also a topic of our next podcast. It is going to be, right now I'm thinking the top 5 tools that are just critical for guitar players. I think number 1 is a girlfriend to pay for everything. That's number 1, but we're going to give you 5 more that you don't already have.
Do not tell your girlfriend she's the top tool in your toolbox, though.
No, not good. No, you're fine. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. Everything's okay. Till next time, Wes, thank you. Great work this week.
Yeah, good talking to you, Andrew. See you soon.
All right, bye.